Hi, good morning or afternoon or evening. I'm Pastor Neira and I wanted to share my testimony with you today. For the past 4 months, I've been driving back and forth between Arizona and California because my aunt got sick, like late March. And her symptoms were like coughing, fever, nausea, lack of appetite, and body aches. And I was very wary of what it could be. So I went back to take her to the hospital and the doctor diagnosed her with influenza. She had gone before, so this was her second time, and the first time they also diagnosed her with influenza, but her condition kept getting worse and wasn't improving. So I took her to a different hospital, and that night they admitted her and they tested her finally, and she was confirmed to be COVID positive within 24 hours of the test. From that point, it was pretty fast. The next day, on Friday, the doctor called early in the morning telling us that my aunt will need to be put on a ventilator, but she really doesn't want to be intubated. And at that time, my aunt was very traumatized by past events, so she hated the idea of being on life support. So I talked to her and I told her, you know, it's not going to be forever. You're not going to need a machine for the rest of your life. Your body just needs a little help to recuperate, maybe just a couple weeks. So my aunt agreed and they intubated her that day. I didn't know how long it would all last, but I just wanted to comfort her. And at that time I thought, oh, you know, it's probably gonna last at most like 3 weeks. So I thought that's fine, because my aunt had told her doctor that she only wants to be on the vent for 3 weeks. So that was that, and I was very positive about everything. But then a week passed by, she didn't get better. Her lungs were still very, very damaged. Her PEEP was like at 16 and she was requiring an FiO2 of like 65 to 80%, which is really, really telling of how severe her damage had been. And after a week, the doctor started to talk to me about, you know, worst case scenario. She might need, since she isn't improving and her damage is this bad, she could have scarring in her lungs, which is pretty irreversible. So maybe she'll need to be on a ventilator for a good portion, or potentially the rest of her life. And he started to talk to me about alternatives of taking her off. Knowing, you know, if we took her off the ventilator, that meant letting her body fight off and just to basically be defenseless kind of against the progression of the virus, so she would most likely not survive without it. At first, I was pretty shocked at the suggestion, but then I started thinking again, okay, she only wants 3 weeks. Let's give her that at least. I'm pretty sure she's going to turn around within the time frame. But the second week passed by and she didn't get better. And her second doctor that took her second doctor that took charge of her case started to tell me the same things, like worst case scenario, and he was actually a bit more concerned about her wishes and her quality of life as well. And he told me, you know, I don't know, do you just understand what she would want, and you should go with her wishes, basically, which was again to only be on there for 3 weeks, right? But I thought, okay, one more week. And the 3rd week passes by and she still is the same. And at this point, maybe halfway through the 2nd week, her body had been fighting the vent, so they put her on paralytic medications to kind of paralyze her body so it doesn't kind of try to fight the ventilator. And at that point I was just thinking, I was getting very discouraged. Once the 3rd week came by, I started thinking more seriously about her wishes and about what that implied and about what my responsibility was. I guess I wanted to have faith that God could make a miracle happen, but I also didn't want to just blindly go against her wishes. And also I was thinking, you know, I could pray about her healing and I could pray for it, but God ultimately knows best, and that might not be best for her. So and just a little context, 10 years ago a similar situation happened with my uncle, where he got into a heart attack, and since he didn't really receive enough oxygen to the brain, he was rendered comatose. Afterwards, I prayed so hard at that time for my uncle to be healed, for somehow if God could just renew the cells in his brain and to help it to function again. And I believed so hard that if I prayed earnest enough, God could bring a miracle. And so I prayed and I prayed for the impossible, and 8 months later my uncle passed away. So at that time, so fast forward to this year, praying for my aunt in that state, I kind of kept remembering the last time. Oh, you prayed about your uncle before and God didn't think it was best for him to survive. And so I started thinking, maybe this time the answer will be the same. And so maybe I should start praying for God's wisdom and decision instead of pushing my own want to heal my aunt. And so that's what I did, and I started talking to the family more about the alternatives, and I explained to them everything the doctor had told me, but they were still very adamant about keeping her on, so I did. And the 4th week went by and my aunt was still the same. And I mean, at this point, I've truly believed that it's just a repeat of 10 years ago, and that we all needed to just let go and to let God, have his will done. At that time, someone who had been going through a similar decision told me that I should pray for something very specific, like a very, very unique sign from God. So I prayed. Outside of my house, there were these flowers that had withered and kind of were dying, and they were all bent low to the ground. And I prayed, God, if you want me to hold on to her and to just trust that you're going to heal her 100%, I don't want her to have to live with the ventilator. So if you're going to heal her 100%, please let me know by reviving specifically this one flower out of the 5 that were dying. Specifically revive this one flower, make it stand straight up again and healthy, and I will hold on. At that time, I was kind of thinking, okay, most likely that's not gonna happen. Dying flowers don't just get revived again. And I was really expecting for the worst. But yeah, I did, but I prayed it because I just needed some sort of assurance. So that day, after I prayed, I took my dogs to the vet, and at the vet while I was waiting, her doctor called for that week. And it was a different doctor that I haven't talked to at all yet before. And he was telling me, oh, you know what, your aunt, she's improving a little bit. Her PEEP level had gone from 16 to 14 to 10 in the past few days. And also her oxygen levels were, her oxygen requirements were also decreasing, which is a really good sign, but I was still very weary. She wasn't out of the woods yet. She was still needing a lot of time to heal. So I told the doctor, you know, I really want to hold on and I really want to try, but do you think that's a good decision? And all this time, and I asked the doctor, you know, if you were in my position, what would you choose? And I asked the same question to all 3 previous doctors. If you were in my position, what would you choose? And all 3 of the doctors before had said, oh, I can't say that. But this doctor, the 4th doctor, he told me, you know what, if I was in your position, I would hold on. And he started listing, you know, because she's only 68, which is pretty young, and she hasn't had a previous history, so I think it's good for you to hold on. And that was my kind of first, okay, God, are you trying to talk to me? Are you answering my prayers? And I was a little bit more hopeful. And when I drove home, I rushed to see the flowers in the front, the dead flowers. And when I looked, that one specific flower out of the 5 that I said that I prayed about, it was standing straight up. And it was healthy, it was beautiful, and more than that, not only that one, but 2 other flowers were standing straight up. God didn't just want to reassure me to hold on himself, but he let 3 flowers stand up to encourage me and to affirm my prayers. And from that moment on, it was hard. It was a long process, but I was just so filled with peace that God had given me. And through prayer and through trust, I was able to receive that peace. And so my aunt was on the ventilator for 2 months, and then she got transferred to a rehabilitation center, a post-acute rehab center. And now she's back at home, and I really couldn't be more thankful and grateful for God, and also for all those who have supported me, who have talked me through it, who have given me help in every possible way. And I'm so thankful for you guys who have helped me through this, and for your prayers. And I just want to affirm with you this Bible verse that I read when I was going through this all. Isaiah 43 verse 18 through 19. Do not call to mind the former things or ponder things of the past. Behold, I will do something new. Now it will spring forth. Will you not be aware of it? I will even make a roadway in the wilderness, rivers in the desert. Whatever your past might be, I just want to encourage you that as bleak as it might have been in the past, God is always trying to do something new with your life. He's never done with you, and ultimately his goal is to have you feel His love. And so I want to encourage you not to give up. Keep praying, keep holding on to Him, because prayer works. And sometimes we assume what God's answer will be, but truly, God is trying to talk to us every day. And if we could just listen, if we would just listen, I think we would all be a little bit more at peace. I hope that this testimony has brought a little bit of light into your day. And it is my prayer that you don't give up, whatever it is that's making you struggle. I know a God who will make rivers in the desert and a roadway in the wilderness, and He will make a way for you. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful day.